comic books that need to be disputed. My fee is free. Welcome to this broadcast time again. I know I'm old school, just forget me, Comic books, cultural impact, all right? Look, I'm going to get right into it. On my last segment, we dealt with comics and race, and we're still dealing with comics and race, but I'm going to take you back 30 years ago to the independent black comic book market. Throughout the 70s, when I started collecting comic books and I love all those comic book characters. Actually, during the 60s when I was a little boy, of course, I saw the Hercules, Space Ghost, the Superman, Batman, Flash, Green Lantern, the Incredible Hulk, the Fantastic Four cartoons. Then in the early 70s, around 73, I started collecting comic books as a elementary school student, and comic books was fascinating. It gave me ideas and things to read and write, and I became a better reader and writer from reading comic books, okay? And that's just the truth. That's the power that the world of wonder that it opened up to me is what comic books gave me. Now, during that time, I also started developing projection. And what I mean, projection means that I start imagining, of course, we all, boys of every various racial and cultural background, what's the first thing we do? We put on scarves or towels and become superheroes. Back when I was growing up, we argued who wanted to be Batman and Robin or who was going to be Green Hornet and Kato. Of course, the boys who grew up in the 60s, we know what we're talking about. Who everybody wanted to be? Kato. Who was Kato? Bruce Lee. Why did we want to be Kato? Because he was the most impressive guy we saw fighting on television. Forget Green Hornet and Batman and Robin. We wanted to be like Bruce Lee. Well, of course, Bruce Lee wasn't a household name then. That's the effect that guy had on the culture. Even when he was practically unknown, he was the guy Kato. You know what I did love about Green Hornet was that smooth voice he had. The original Green Hornet, played by the late Van Williams, had one of the smoothest voices I like. I'm a guy always like, I never knew I would have one of those voices myself. I just always liked them. You quit playing. Y'all know y'all like the way I sound, don't you? You wish your man sound like this, don't you? You know you do. All right. Back to reality. But Bruce Lee made everybody love that character Kato. And it was even an effect on the later Jet Li. Man, I could talk about Jet Li, action star Jet Li. Like Michael J. White has an awesome background. This nerd talk a little bit. But he played a character called, what that character Jet Li played that looked just like Kato. And he did a movie in the late 90s of a character that had to be based on the Green Hornet Kato character, okay? I think it was the Black Hat or something. I just can't remember. Anyway, and then we started imagining superheroes in our images. And we black guys that was coming up in the late 60s and early 70s, we wanted to see black superheroes in our images. Marvel answered some of it with the Black Panther. Then they came up with the Falcon in the 70s, and also Luke Cage, Power Man. Now, if you all been watching any of the Netflix movies, you know, or Marvel, you know who Falcon is now, and you know who Luke Cage, Power Man is now, because of television, right? And the movies, right? Well, we young black males that was growing up wanted Marvel and DC to do more black superheroes. DC responded with a black Green Lantern, John Stewart, back in the late 60s, early 70s. Also in the late 70s with Black Lightning. Now notice all the superheroes that were black had black in front of their name. That's a story for another day. It's like you couldn't look at them and tell they was black. Imagine if you open up a comic book and every time you saw White Lightning, White Panther, White Thor. I mean, come on, you know. Well, in the early late '80s, early '90s, there were black publishers that came out. Comic book, one of my favorite, the guy Jason and Guy Sims, and now Dawu, who was formerly David Sims, but now his name is Dawu, came out with a very popular character at the 1990 Black Expo, Brother Man. Self-published by these brothers, this character blew up and created the black comic book movement. On my YouTube channel, August 2016, I have a full interview. Go to Danny Tennial, YouTube, type it in, YouTube Danny Tennial. On my channel, that is still up from 5 years ago. There was also a movement at that time, the ANIA movement, by 4 different black publishers who formed an alliance. They created a black comic book character called the Purge, Heru, based on the Egyptian god, who also was an influence on other mythologies, and that's a story for another day. Also, Ebony Warrior, these were urban type of Batman type characters. All these guys sold in the thousands during the early 1990s. Also, there was Captain Africa by Dwayne Ferguson, Omega Man by Alonzo Washington. Some of these men I met personally at the Black Expos during the 1990s. You also had black comic books in the 1990s called the Numidian Force, also Lionheart. These were the early 1990s, okay? What happened? When they created the market, here come DC Comics, led by comic book veterans, writers and artists with Milestone Media. Okay, without these black men independently creating the black comic book market, DC Comics would never have financed Milestone Media. Yes, I said it. Man, do I love Milestone? Man, they are great. Some of the greats come. All of these are actual comic book covers of actual comic books that I, Nerd Geek Supreme Danny Tennial, own. Okay, and all of these pretty much are the first issues of Milestone Media. Everyone in the black community, at least the baby boomers and some generation Xers, right? You know who Black Enterprise is. You know it was one of the leading finance black magazines in black history. Earl Graves, whom I did have the chance to meet as a writer, Earl Graves and his family did a great job at first educating black people on investing in financing long before Boyce Watkins was in the game. They did a cover of Milestone Media's founders, and these are some of the comic books that Milestone Media published. Hardware, a Iron Man type of black guy. Icon, a black Superman type. The Blood Syndicate, they were created from a accident gone wrong with the police department called the Big Bang. Hey, I won't cover everything, but they were a play on a slant to me of the whole X-Men thing. And of course, their most popular character because of television, Static. Static is one of the most iconic characters of the original Milestone line. And because of the success of going back to my last show, of Black Panther, DC has resurrected the Icon, Hardware, Blood Syndicate, and Static characters. But black men laid the foundation independently, proving to both DC and Marvel that black people did indeed buy and read comic books, and that there are comic books that could cater to the African American market. Hence, these black comic books, all this is 30 years ago. The 1990s. We're not, all of these books were done 30 years ago. But you think because you just started to put on a Black Panther mask and suit, it just started happening. No. Hats off to the early attempts of Marvel and DC, but you did not have the varied type of different characters of black male representation in particular, and black people in particular, until all these brothers invested their own time and money to create the black comic book market that made it possible for DC to invest in Milestone Media, creating Hardware, Icon, the Blood Syndicate, and Static. Now, as I said, of course, I'm a fan of all these guys and certainly the Milestone Media, but we got to tell the truth where the truth is. Without the individual self-sacrifices and actions of black people and black males in particular, there would be no Milestone. I look forward, hopefully, the DCU could ever get itself together. I don't hold my breath for it, but they would bring some of these characters that they financed and created, the Milestone characters, to the forefront. And that's going to be a lead in that I'm going to do. As I told you, this is from the 90s. You think I just woke up this morning and know about all these things? No, I was there. And in spite of some of you just now seeing me in Memphis and Atlanta, I was in on this segment up here, a pioneer black comic book publisher and marketer during the early 1990s, okay? And so, you see this t-shirt here? It was done back in 1994 by a very young black artist named McGowan of my team called the Liberation League. I'll tell you the background on that coming up. Superheroes on planet Earth, step forward! For those of you that have any comic books that need to be disputed, my fee is free. Hi, I'm Danny Tennial. I am your host and producer of this show, Comic Books Cultural Impact. I grew up loving the greatest superheroes that were ever created: Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, the Fantastic Four, the Incredible Hulk, and the X-Men. I was an avid comic book collector as a young boy. One thing that I decided to do as I semi-retired from the ministry in Memphis, to get back into something that I love to do. That's comic books, comic strips, performing. And that show is a bit of what you're seeing here. And I also, along with my partner Ryan Smith, is doing a t-shirt business and as well as printing business and comic books, calendars, t-shirts. Just check us out again at Ryan Smith Iconic Images on Facebook, or give us a call, 901-584-2585. Oh my goodness, this, I hope I can last long. This is the most emotional time. This is my story of my actions in the black comic book market during the early 1990s. Let me say this. One thing you got to understand, 30 years ago, a lot of things that exist now, of course, didn't exist then. And a lot of the information and social channels that exist now did not exist then. A lot of the opportunities to become well known when you were unknown through YouTube or Facebook, Twitter just didn't exist then. And you got to understand that with the constraints that we had, there were those of us who loved the genre of comic books and wanted to see a better representation of black people in that industry, took our time, finances, money, and sacrifices and created a movement. And you don't think I was there? Man, I was right on top of it at the wave. Let me start you here. The Willie Harrington souvenir booklet. As you can see, he was the first elected black mayor of Memphis. One of my friends, the late great journalist Vernon Ash, who was also one of my mentors in the media and in marketing, wanted my character, the Nubian Knight, to be in this historic souvenir of Dr. W. Harrington's election as the first elected black mayor of Memphis, Tennessee. Bam, there it is. My superhero, you can see 1991, Danny Tennial, the superhero Nubian Knight meets Willie Harrington. Again, when I published my first comic book that we now call graphic novel, Vernon Ash got me in the commercial appeal. You can see, dated September 1994. What's LL called it? Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years, rapping the place, putting suckers in fear. You know, that's me. I've been here. I got the receipts. This is just part of media. I was also featured on Channel 3 in Memphis, Tennessee, as well as at that time, cable was coming along, and on the Arthur Robinson's broadcast in 91, he had me on his show talking about the Nubian Knight and Major Awesome, two characters that I had created at that time. Nowadays, you take for granted people dress up like superheroes. You know, they call it cosplay, which is short for costume play. Look here, this is 1995. At the Black Expo, I had actual models, bodybuilders, professional wrestlers as my superheroes from the Liberation League. Major Awesome, Nubian Knight, Lady Liberator, the Overman at that time. Okay? Look, this is 1995. I was already, I'm going to tell you, when I was in the Miami Expo, 1995, the Miami Black Expo, probably 500,000 people were there throughout that weekend. Guess who table stayed busier than anybody? Me. You know why? I knew that these superheroes would draw. I sold out every comic book I had on the table. Let me tell you, I could hear back then. I got a little hearing loss. Now, thank you, FedEx. What happened is that the other vendors at the Miami Expo, I heard them get jealous that I was selling all those comic books, kids dragging their parents to see my black superheroes. They say, oh, what is this? A Halloween party? While they sit there and they couldn't even sell a peanut to an elephant. Because I understood, hey, if I go way out. I give it all I got. Man, this was I take Kenan Brooks, Rapsel Snowman, bodybuilder Mike Mebane, and bodybuilder Miss Kirkendall. They did it up. I had parents, children, black kids wanting to take pictures with black superheroes. This Miami 1995, I kid you not. That is the power of producing. 2002, I said, now see me, I have to learn. I would really like to get up-and-coming black female artists and writers to really write. This is from 2002, Queens. All right, down here are all the graphic novels that I did at that time. The Nubian Knight, 1994. 1995, the Liberation League. 1995 again, the Million Man March comic book sold out at the Million Man March. 2002, I wanted to do something. Black people call each other queens. I say, what other little superhero team called Queen? Queen of Spades, Queen of Hearts, Queen of Clubs, Queen of Diamond. All black women. I got an article in the Memphis Tri-State Defender. This is from 2002. These were some of my models for those characters. Again, they had a little convention in Memphis. I said, okay, I'll go there. It was a black writers, whatever. There was a major publisher that did a black singles book called Chocolate Singles, right? Channel 3 came there to interview him. Guess who was outselling Chocolate Singles? You're looking at him. Don't I look good? You know it's me. You know it's me. All right? I was outselling independent black publisher, outselling a major publisher on their ground. Channel 3, they didn't want to put that camera on me, but they couldn't help but stop. Everybody they had, their whole crew, stopped and looked at that spectacle. Who is that guy? I know they wanted to, give him, but see, they wasn't there to put no spotlight on an independent black publisher. This is in 2002. My models helped me sell those books. Now, everybody is doing cosplay. I'm telling you how ahead I was thinking to sell the idea of black girls and black boys seeing themselves as power images. Now, look, I can't blame you. If you come up in a world, imagine, say you're not black. Let's play this right here. Imagine you woke up in the Twilight Zone and everything was reversed. Imagine every time you turn the TV on, all the heroes, all the positive things were all black people, and everything that was negative was white people. Don't you know that would have a psychological effect on your brain and the brain of your children? Imagine if every history book you opened was black people and nothing of white people. The only thing that was talked about of white people were you were slaves to black people. Imagine that. If you can't imagine that, if you won't imagine that, nothing can help you. But if you can't imagine that, you'll start understanding why the images of black people or black people seeing themselves as positive empowerment images is important to black people. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind, black or white, to what perception of empowerment they want to grant to themselves. But at a psychological level, when I sit down and write and create anything, comic books or in articles or on television, I have a definite plan at projecting what I want to go in your conscience. I'm going to drop a little nugget on you. You better believe anything that's on television, anything that's in a comic book, anything that's in a magazine, anything that comes across in a commercial, anything that comes across in a television show, there's a thought process behind it, and there's a message, both conscious and subconscious, that meant to get out to you. And anyone that tells you differently is pulling your chain and licking you like an all-day sucker. You can't tell me that you put out negative images, negative commentary, and you don't expect to get the response that you get. You knew exactly what you were doing because everything is done for a purpose and for a reason. Whether it's comic books, music, even a gospel message or gospel song, it's a thought process. 30 years, 40 years, I've worked in media professionally. You're not going to con me with the okie doke, okay? When I sit here and created these graphic novels, I was part of the black comic book independent movement. And let me share this with you. At that time, Commercial Appeal, this is going to be real quick. The Commercial Appeal had a white guy named Captain Comics where they interviewed comic books. I met with Captain Comics at the Commercial Appeal office down on Union and asked him if he knew about the black comic book movement. He said he did, of course. When he did a write-up on the black comic book independent market, he said that it was racist. Captain Comics said that what we were doing, positive black images, was racism. You can't make it up, okay? The need to show ourselves as empowerment images. Of course, as I said, the regular comic book companies did. You had John Stewart Green Lantern, who you saw in the Justice League cartoons in the early 2000s. They had Black Lightning. Those are the main two DC. Then later on they created a black female called the Vixen. I like the Vixen, decent superhero. Did you also know there's a black Wonder Woman? Wonder Woman has a black twin sister called Nubia. That's a fact in DC Comics. But was DC pushing these black characters? No. What forced the hand of Marvel and DC? Black people producing comic books for black people. Does it make sense now? So, I love Batman, Superman. There's nothing wrong. Ain't nothing wrong with your sons or daughters. I'm working on it. A superhero line of t-shirts, custom made, screen printed, of Nubian Night, the Liberation League. Let me tell you something. In these graphic novels, long before you start seeing what you're looking at now with the boys on television, I asked, what would the real world be if there was a real black guy with powers? Let's use it like Superman. Say that he came up in the ghetto, saw police brutality, saw the effects of illegal laws. Would that black guy with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men be waving the U.S. flag? And, yes, sir, Mr. President, I'm for America. He see with his x-ray vision things you can't see. He hear what those cops or whoever's saying, those politicians saying. You really think if that powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal man, black man, you really think they would hail him as a hero or see him as a villain? As I said on one show, if you can handle Captain America punching Adolf Hitler, but you can't handle Captain America supporting Black Lives Matter, the problem is not the woke comic books. Maybe the problem is just your dead brain. That's the way I see it. Till next time.